another short video just to help you guys out with your qualified endorsements on these negotiable instruments that you're signing, autographing, endorsing, whether it's an I or an E. It does make a difference. Go look at the definitions for endorse. Whether you spell it I-N or E-N makes a difference. But this tender of payment is issued for full settlement and accord and satisfaction to discharge, set off any obligations. All revisionary interest shall be paid to the entitlement holder after the instrument has been, i.e., negotiated at the Treasury or any Federal Reserve Bank. All open, all accounts payable and accounts receivable shall then and there be closed. You're giving them instructions on your negotiable instrument. This promissory note is considered tender of payment for full settlement and closure of this account and contractual agreement, period. And any revisionary interest that will be generated from negotiating this instrument on the Securities Exchange Commission, on the international stock market, any annuities, futures, dividends, derivatives, shall be made payable to the entitlement holder upon special drawing rights. Well, what happens, Derek, if they decide not to negotiate your instrument? Well, we're going to go ahead and give them a nice little caveat. As security intermediaries, by interfering and failing to do your job in negotiating this instrument for full settlement and payment and closure of these accounts, you may be held liable under Title 15, subsection 1, subpart 1, interference with trade and commerce. Okay? It's just a nice little caveat there. You have 21 days to respond. If you're not going to honor the instrument, you need to provide your lawful reason for not honoring this negotiable instrument. Okay? At the end of 21 days, and actually it's in 72 hours, after 72 hours of having that negotiable instrument in their constructive possession, they've accepted it. That's the law of commerce. 72 hours. If they fail to provide the goods and services for which you have tendered a lawful payment for, they could be liable for up to 3 times the damages. So you're creating this negotiable instrument, this promissory note. They have the documents already drafted up for you, and now you're simply just going to qualify your endorsement. This shall be issued as a full tender of payment made for full accord and satisfaction to settle the account due and owing, if any at all while reserving as an entitlement holder, or for the rights of the entitlement holder, special drawing rights of any annuities or futures, dividends, or derivatives that are manifested from negotiating that instrument on the International Stock Exchange. This letter of credit, promissory note, IBOE, International Bill of Exchange, or Bill of Exchange, is for full accord and satisfaction, right? To settle the accounts. Zero balance the accounts. You're going to want to give instructions to your security intermediary. Well, who's the security intermediary? Could be the CEO, could be the CFO. The CFO knows a hell of a lot more than the CEO does. That's why your chief financial officer is paid more. They understand how to negotiate these instruments. They're licensed by the licensor as a licensee to do so. All right? They're not supposed to be telling you that you can't negotiate, or they can't negotiate your instruments, because after all, it was your future earnings that bolstered the economy for the United States. They owe you, not the other way around, ladies and gentlemen. And then, of course, we like to go into trade and commerce, Title 15, subsection 1, subpart 1. Any interference with trade and commerce, I believe it's purported, from my recollection, to be a $100 million fine. Now, you don't receive the $100 million. It may be the IRS that collects the $100 million. It may be the United States Treasury that collects the $100 million. It won't be you. But you're going to report that. If they're in dishonor, you're going to be reporting that because they never gave you back your original security, which means they accepted it, which means they kept something of value and they didn't report it. And when they didn't report it, they're guilty of tax evasion, all right? Because that negotiable instrument needs to be assessed for taxes under Title 26, 2603, 2602, 2001, and 2002, which this could be put in your caveat. Any securities intermediary and custodian of this negotiable instrument is liable for the transfer taxes on the carryover basis. I'm stupefied by that alone. Assignment as... I can't read. Sorry, it's bouncing too much, Keith. Keith's a sharp fellow that's doing an abundance of research. So how many people go to get a mortgage for a house and just sign all the paperwork right there in the bank? You don't take it home. You know, there's a maximum law that says he who pays in haste pays twice. There's also another maximum in law that states that he who seeks counsel after the fact is always in vain. It means if you're in haste to do something and then you seek counsel after the fact, it's mundane, it's frivolous, because the action has already been completed. So when you're negotiating your instruments, it would behoove you to either attach an allonge or right by your signature give the instructions for full accord and satisfaction. This tender of payment, this note shall constitute tender of payment and full accord and satisfaction. Nobody's telling you guys to do this stuff. If you're not giving directions, you're giving them a gift. They presume and assume that you gifted them this new credit on account, this new currency that you have created in the economy. And they're allowed to presume and assume that all day long until you correct the record. So when you go to get a mortgage, it would behoove you to get the mortgage package, a week in advance. That way you can sign it before your own notary. That way you can record the original promissory note and all the instruments before you turn it over. Okay, that way you can go ahead and do the 1099-A and the W-4 form for them employing the Social Security person. Make no mistake about it. Their principal corporation is employing the Social Security identification number. All right? That's why in the Fourth Amendment, you have the right to be secure in your houses, papers, persons, and effects. Don't abandon your person. And you got lots of persons. A driver's license is a person. A birth certificate is a bill of lading. An application, an original master application generates a new person. When you sign up to go to grade school, your parents sign up for you to go to grade school, they manifested into existence another person. Guess what they're utilizing to fund the education of the man through the person? The Social Security person that belongs to the estate, for which you're the beneficiary of, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's amazing when you start to research this, how clear it becomes. So a letter of credit, international bill of exchange, promissory note. Anywhere that you're giving your instructions on how to negotiate and handle that, you need to put void, rare, prohibited by law. All right? That lets them know that your intent isn't to defraud, defame, extort any other principal corporation or anybody else that may have an interest in said security. We're not here to whisk away other people's credits on account. You may even include in your letter of credit some gratuity to the securities intermediary, because after all, we all have to eat. And being that he works for an insolvent principal corporation, we've included a 15% gratuity, because we figured that maybe 13% would be taxable, and then the rest could go to your principal corporation to make sure that you got food on the table as well. Done in good faith, with good conscience, and for good reason. Just throwing out some ideas for you guys to research these negotiable instruments. If you really want to become keen on negotiable instruments, it might be really, 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 really wise to take the time to study UCC 8, Negotiable Instruments and Securities. What a qualified endorsement is, how to do it, how to create your caveat and your instructions. You know, you may even include lawful money when you negotiate that security to retain your security's interest in said instrument. One piece of silver, and that's how transfer is titled. Value and consideration. Real simple stuff. If they keep it longer than 72 hours, ladies and gentlemen, they've accepted it. We did this with a bank one time, and they kept the negotiable instrument and then sent him a letter saying they were refusing it as a form of payment. Well, that's all fine and dandy. You can tell us that you're refusing it as a form of payment, but what did you do with our International Bill of Exchange, you fucking schmucks? Where's it at? Who holds it? Because that's the liable party. Now, with your negotiable instrument, there's this nifty little thing called the Money Net Daily Log Transaction Report 120 that shows where the funds originated and whose account they went to. I will guarantee you that anybody you're doing business with, those funds did not derive from their accounts. They are merely your trustees, your securities intermediary, your brokers, ladies and gentlemen. And you got to call them out on their fiduciary obligation. So under the Power of Appointment Act of 1951, I appoint the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of whatever banking organization he's working for, as the fiduciary trustee and securities intermediary responsible for negotiating the instrument and zero balancing the account, settling this account, and setting me a letter of satisfaction when the task at hand is completed. Right? He's saying Title 42 penalties. Our biggest screw up here, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that we're not qualifying our endorsement and given instructions on how to negotiate the instrument on behalf of the beneficiary. That's our biggest fuck up. That's where we're going wrong. Start negotiating your instruments differently. For par value, not for face value. For par value. Full settlement, acquittance, and discharge. This note shall constitute full settlement and payment for whatever it is. Then you turn around on the UCC, register in the commercial chambers, your instrument. So now it's registered in the commercial chambers, and everybody in commerce knows that it's in existence. It's there. You'll notice that on mortgages, you'll never see the original promissory note registered, the proper terminology is recorded at the courthouse. You'll never see it there. Never. Because you sign all these documents right there on a whim, hoping for a set of keys to a new house or a new car. And because of that, you abandon your instrument, and they receive it as a gift. And then they collateralize it and put a lien against it. Then when the bank goes to foreclose on that purported loan for failure of performance, what ends up coming to light is the fact that you can't foreclose on a note until the lien is removed. So there's got to be a notice of revocation of lien on said note. Where's it at? Who has it? Where was it placed at? Where was it recorded? Was it recorded in the same county that you allegedly got a note in that county, or was it recorded in another county? They always put a lien against it, but you can't foreclose on something that's got a lien on it, especially the bank. So they have to do a notice of release of lien. Where's it at? Who has it? Don't fight the foreclosure, ladies and gentlemen. That's a joke. Don't ask for the note. I used to be of that mindset. Oh, who's got the note? Who's got the original? They're already admitting that they possess the note, which means that they're admitting that they had a duty to perform. Nail them on their failure to performance and breach of trust. That's where your remedy is at. Never mind the fact you didn't qualify your endorsement. Never mind the fact that you didn't do a lot of things that you should have done. The fact remains that they're in constructive possession of the note under Title 26, 2603, 2602, 2001, 2002. They're liable for the transfer taxes on a carryover basis, and they're also liable for the capital gains taxes because they received it as a gift and never reported the income properly to the IRS. All right? So when they're foreclosing on you, smile. Say thank you. Love that fact because you just admitted that you had a duty and an obligation to perform. And I need to see a wet ink signature from the attorney, in fact, that this note was in fact a gift and that I was abandoning the original security and that it was not my intent, prove that it was not my intent to issue that tender of payment, that security, that international bill of exchange, the bill of exchange, the promissory note, the letter of credit, prove that it was not my intent to tender that payment for full settlement and discharge of the matter. They got some explaining to do, and they can't explain it. They've got limited power of attorney because you granted it to them by signing all those documents in a banking facility without doing your due diligence and researching what you're signing. You can remove revocation of power of attorney and assign it to the trustee, the CFO, to go back to the original security and zero balance the account because your initial intent for tendering that letter of credit, that bill of exchange, the international bill of exchange, or the promissory note was for full accord and satisfaction. All right? And you can testify to that under the pains and penalties of perjury. You're the only one that can do it. It's not their note. It's yours. And proof of it is you're the only signator to it. So you're the undisclosed third-party beneficiary. Period. Hey, Malika, what's going on? Good to see you. I always love to give a shout out to Malika. She's kicking ass. But we're looking at the securities today. You can also W-4. Whoever is employing that Social Security number, they're all utilizing that Social Security number. And when they use that Social Security number, ladies and gentlemen, they're required to fill out an SSA 89 that comes with a $5,000 penalty for employing that Social Security estate account number and failing to disclose it to the Social Security Administration. So you can go to the Social Security Administration, OIG, Office of Inspector General, and report the fact that the courts, the banks, and all these other nefarious little entities are out here running around using the Social Security Administration account number without properly reporting it and disclosing it to the Social Security Administration office. They're all responsible for filing an SSA 89. All right? So there you go. The security agreement. Another wonderful point, Keith. Creating a security agreement to go with your negotiable instrument, muy bien. It doesn't get any sweeter than that. It's neater than a Skeeter's Peter if you understand what Keith is talking about. All right? And the securities agreement is vital. It's essential. But bigger than that is just qualifying your intent on the negotiable instrument that you're endorsing. Okay? When they're whisking away those securities, they have a duty and an obligation to report the new credits on account and currency being generated. Period. Here's another fun fact on foreclosures. In a foreclosure instance, okay, they already, in most instances, not in every instance, but in most instances, they converted the original issued security, aka the promissory note, into an order to pay. And by doing so, they altered that instrument from its intended purpose and carry full liability for converting the note and liberating the alleged obligor simultaneously. All right? That's why you can tell them that you need the MoneyNet Daily Log Transaction Report 120 to verify who received the credits on account and what account the credits on account came from. 9 times out of 10, the Federal Reserve gets your blank banker's endorsement from one of its affiliate branches and says, hey, will you extend your credit for this blank banker's endorsement, this private pledge issued on this negotiable instrument? The Federal Reserve looks at it and goes, hey, you betcha. We will extend our credit for this private currency issued, this private pledge issued by an American. You betcha. So when the bank goes to foreclose on you and they say, well, it was our money and we lent him our money, our currency, it's a farce. It's a lie. And under Title 15, 78 FF, false and misleading statements are penalized, ladies and gentlemen, and come at, I believe it's a $25,000 fine. I used to say a $25 million fine, but go look it up. Title 15, 78 FF, which also is concurrent with Title 15, 1692E, false and misleading statements, okay? In an egregious attempt to extort from you your rights, titles, interest, dividends, derivatives, debentures, hediments, general tangibles, general intangibles, chattels, securities, annuities, futures, rents, profits, and proceeds generated from that note being negotiated. So did the bank lie and bring fraud upon the court when they entered into evidence that they purported to give you an alleged loan? Yes, they did. Because the truth is the Federal Reserve extended its line of credit for your blank banker's endorsement on that negotiable instrument. They were allowed to monetize it 10 times its value. All right? Fractional reserve lending. They are your securities intermediary, your trustees, and you need to get a receipt for all those letters of credit, all those IBOs, international bills of exchange, the bills of exchange, and the promissory notes that you create. You need to also manifest and create a receipt that the trustee, securities intermediary, broker is going to sign upon receipt of your original issued security. Everything always boils down to an excise tax, a security, and there's one other. What's the other one? Excise tax, security, and son of a gun, I'm drawing a blank. It'll come back to me though. But those are the two most important things: is your excise tax and your securities. All right. Your receipt for anything is proof of the excise tax being paid. So you might want to create your receipt for your security, because your security is really paying for the excise taxes that are due owing, because all real estate, all property, all trucks, everything is already prepaid for. So you got to have a receipt to be able to show to the IRS when you assess the taxes on behalf of the principal corporation that received your letter of credit. You have to be able to prove to the IRS that you've extended your credit. You have to produce that. So with that said, I love you guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. Just free balling it off the top of my head, traveling down the roads. When I do my best thinking is on the move. And I wanted to help you guys out. Qualify your endorsements. If they refuse to do business with you because you have qualified your endorsements, giving them explicit instructions to receive payment at the United States Treasury, and they refuse to do business with you, make sure to include the caveat that under Title 15, subsection 1, subpart 1, interference with trade and commerce, to negotiate this instrument does come at a $100 million fine. Void where prohibited by law. Govern yourself accordingly. Done in good faith, with good conscience, for good reason. All right? And send them the instrument. Send it to them via registered mail, so you have proof of the negotiable instrument that you sent through chain of title through the USPTO, or the U.S. Postal Service. Another great way of doing business is through registered mail, ladies and gentlemen. So you have chain of title, proof of custody of how you sent your negotiable instrument. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for all your support, and we'll see you soon. What do you disagree with? Malika, stop endorsing indoors altogether. Yeah, well, like I told him at the beginning of this, study the definitions of endorse and endorse IN and endorse EN. They have two different connotations and two different, very different descriptions of the words. And security is negotiated on the front of the instrument, ladies and gentlemen. The front of the instrument is where the negotiation happens, not on the back like everybody's been led to believe. The front of the instrument is where the negotiation happens. I've seen a number of mortgages that are fully paid off, and the front of the instrument is written out by the banking trustee, the securities intermediary. It's written on there, pay to the order of such and such. And I looked at the guy and I go, you realize what this is, right? They negotiated your instrument, and they're giving it back to you because it has value. He's one of the few people I've ever seen, after fulfilling an obligation, they got his note back. But what he didn't realize is that he was a third-party, undisclosed beneficiary, and he was also an undisclosed investor in the negotiation of that security, and he had 8% coming back to him for every payment ever made, plus his payments. We could never get him to see that, so unfortunately he never tried to attempt to enforce that instrument. But that's the reality of it. Ladies and gentlemen, they're usurping your labor, your sweat equity, and if you don't know any better, then they're whisking it away as abandoned funds, abandoned property, and they're claiming it. So if you make sure that the entitlement holder holds special drawing rights, then the entitlement holder can come back and draw the annuities, the futures, the dividends, the derivatives, and the debentures from the negotiation of the securities from being negotiated on the stock exchange.